Hello and welcome to Business 360. I'm Shireen Bhan. The headlines that we're tracking for you this evening: a manic Monday on the Loa Street as weak global cues rock sentiment. The Nifty down to its lowest level in 7 months. Mid-cap index now down 15% from its record highs. All sectoral indices close in the red. Tech stocks are selling off across Europe and US. This after Chinese AI platform DeepSeek becomes the most downloaded app on the Apple Store in the US within weeks of its launch. This raises questions about US companies maintaining their dominance in artificial intelligence. The government invites applications for the post of SEBI chairperson by the 17th of February. The 3-year tenure of the current chief, Madhabi Puri Butch, ends on the 28th of February. She was the first person from the private sector to lead the institution. A fresh twist in the battle to control Religare. A US-based hotelier, Danny Gaikwad, throws his hat into the ring, approaches SEBI to make an open offer to buy 55% stake. The Burman family says Gaikwad has not made a competing offer and the request before SEBI lacks substance. Abhinandan Lodha cannot use the Lodha brand name as it belongs to macrotech developer, says Abhishek Lodha. The brothers are embroiled in a 5,000 crore rupee trademark lawsuit before the Bombay High Court. India's Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri meets China's Foreign Minister Wang in Beijing, both nations attempting to revive the bilateral relationship after the Galwan Valley clash between India and China that killed soldiers 5 years ago. The US and Colombia pulled back from the brink of a trade war. The Trump administration puts tariffs and sanctions on hold after the South American nation agrees to accept hundreds of deported immigrants from the US. Tens of thousands of displaced Palestinians returned to their homes in northern Gaza for the first time since Israel war began. Israel and Hezbollah also extend their ceasefire in Lebanon to the 18th of February. Aam Aadmi Party chief Arvind Kejriwal releases the party's manifesto ahead of the Feb 5th Delhi elections, promises monthly financial support for 2,100 rupees for women, free bus travel for students, free healthcare facilities for senior citizens, among others. All of that and more coming up, but let's start with the sell-off that we saw on the Loa Street today. The sensex lost over 800 points and the Nifty dropped below 23,000 in what was a manic Monday on the Loa Street. That's the screen there, a sea of red. 824 gone on the sensex, 263 on the Nifty. The Nifty mid-cap 15% off from its record highs, down over 1,400 points today and 650 points lower. That is the Nifty small cap index. Of course, weak global cues have also weighed on our markets. All sectoral indices, as I pointed out, closing in the red. Prashant is standing by now to wrap up the market action for us. It is a very weak picture as we get into trade this week, Prashant, and of course not being helped by what's happening globally either.
There are mostly all old worries, Shireen, but there are some new ones as well, as you pointed out, especially from the global arena. So, it's starting to hurt. And it has actually, to be fair, been hurting portfolios for a while now. Because, while the graphic will come up, which shows you how much we are down from the highs for the Nifty Bank, for the mid and the small cap part of the market. 13%, right, can live with it. But the point is, the broader market, stocks and one's portfolios are down between 30 and 40%. This is, of course, just the indices. Nifty Bank is down 12. Mid-cap index as of today's close from the highs is down 15. Small cap index is down about 17%. Actually, for the mid and small cap part of the market, losses have accelerated over the last 10 days or so. They were at par with how much the Nifty or the Nifty Bank was down. These are sort of sectoral sort of cuts that we've seen. PSU Bank Index is down 24% from the highs now. Again, CPSE is down 24%, which basically means an index is down, has lost about 0.25% of value, which means stocks are down 40, 50% in some cases. Oil and gas, 25%. You've got the metal index, which is down about 21%. Auto, real estate, FMCG are some of the others. And this is the part. Real estate companies, and real estate is especially important because, it connects to so many other things in the economy. Many real estate companies are starting to talk about the fact that whether the urban slowdown that we are seeing will start to actually impact home sales. We had Abhishek Lodha with us earlier this morning actually sort of talking about it. Said so far they're not seeing any slowdown, but it's something to sort of be cognizant of. Now, as I said, just a combination of some of the older worries and of course, some new ones at the margin as well, high valuations. Just to give you an example, the median PE multiple of NSE 500 companies is around 40 times. Now, that's the median. And if you take out some of the lower price, cheaper companies, actually this number goes up, jumps higher. You can always argue and say that high P multiples are not a new phenomenon. I mean, it's been there, has been around for almost a decade now. This big step up in valuations, P multiples that we've seen. But I think this is something which I think comes to bite when markets look a little vulnerable. Of course, single-digit F525 EPS growth is what we're looking at now, because the slowdown started in the second quarter. There were some hopes that Q3 will be better, but I don't think it's panning out that way, which means that the full year FY25 number is basically going to leave us with somewhere around 9-10% kind of growth. And then, which means that FY26 earnings growth estimates will also need to be brought lower over the next one quarter or so. Tight liquidity has been, of course, has been spoken about quite a bit. And now I think it's the clamor is rising from market participants saying that some relief is needed. And some, lots of sell-side mainstream economists are also starting to say that actually, we need to see some action on that particular front. On the fiscal side, of course, the union budget is in front of us on Saturday, the 1st of February. Will the government acknowledge the slowdown with some measures, and what can they do? I think those are important questions as well. And of course, the new worry at the margin, and this is the new one, right? Because the question is this: will China's DeepSeek startup and the product that they've launched call into question the billions being spent on AI capex on companies like NVIDIA, etc., which has basically been singularly responsible for this big, huge up move in U.S. market? So, and that's a new thing which has been thrown into the mix, and which has kind of complicated matters. I would have said that given the correction that we've already had, markets perhaps were at a point where we at least start to see a bit of a bounce. But with the fact that the last point that I mentioned with regards to global markets, with this DeepSeek thing, I think we are still in wait and watch mode, whether that will really cause damage or, it's something which will actually pass over and U.S. markets actually will be really unhurt in the larger scheme of things. So I think lots of things to track. It's a bit of a flux out there. But I think one thing absolutely clear, portfolios hurting out there. Back to you.
Yes, portfolios are certainly hurting, but of course, in the US, we've seen that mega tech rally, and whether this is just a bit of a breather or a pause is the big question, or whether it is going to be more sustained. Thanks very much, Prashant, for joining us. Now, tech stocks routed across Europe and the US after a little-known Chinese AI startup called DeepSeek became the most popular app in the US within weeks of its launch. So what is DeepSeek exactly, and why is it worrying the West? Rima joins us now to explain. Rima.
Thanks so much for that. Call it the AI showdown, the face-off. But, things are hotting up between ChatGPT, which was dominating generative AI so far, and the new kid on the block, which is DeepSeek, which is a Chinese AI startup. Well, till 2 months back, or even a month back, you probably wouldn't have even heard of DeepSeek. But it rose into prominence in December of last year when they unveiled their free large language model, DeepSeek V3. Now, this was positioned as a it was positioned as a free alternative to ChatGPT, OpenAI's ChatGPT. But the real deal came last week, on the 20th of January, when DeepSeek released a more advanced model, their latest model, DeepSeek R1, and their performance matches up in terms of efficiency to OpenAI's latest model, which is OpenAI O1. In fact, Satya Nadella, when he was asked, and he's the Microsoft CEO, when he was asked at the World Economic Forum about this, he said we should take the developments out of China very, very seriously. Now, here's why scientists are quite excited, but analysts, Wall Street analysts, are quite worried. For one, DeepSeek, again, it's a Chinese AI company. It's formed by this hedge fund. And this was actually made using fewer and inferior GPUs compared to the NVIDIA chips that were used for making OpenAI's ChatGPT. That's reason number one. Secondly, according to reports, this was built in less than 2 months, and the overall cost was $5.58 million, a fraction of what it took for OpenAI to build ChatGPT, which is why analysts are thrilled, but Wall Street is a bit worried. And talking about the fear on Wall Street's mind, is that will DeepSeek be the pin that bursts the AI bubble in a way? Some who believe that perhaps the tech stocks, the AI stocks like NVIDIA, which have had a fantastic run-up of 135% last year, was that getting a little excessive? And will they get a reality check? Which is why NASDAQ futures too have come under pressure today.
Well, this is like the ChatGPT moment 2 years ago. DeepSeek causing a fair degree of concern across Wall Street and, of course, in the AI circles as well. Thanks very much, Rima. And speaking of ChatGPT, top Indian media outlets are joining the copyright fight against OpenAI. According to reports on Reuters and the Hindustan Times, a clutch of media outlets will join a lawsuit filed by news agency ANI, the digital news units of Network 18, NDTV, Hindustan Times, Indian Express, along with the Digital News Publishers Association, have filed an intervention application before the Delhi High Court. The case will be heard by the court tomorrow. In their application, the media outlets accuse OpenAI of violating intellectual property rights by using their content without authorization. OpenAI and other AI companies face multiple lawsuits across the world from news organizations, authors, artists, musicians for using their copyrighted work to train their AI models without permission. So this is going to be an interesting one to watch out for. On to the money market, where the rupee weakened against the US dollar. The rupee weakened by 13 paise as it remains above the 86 mark. There was a rally, though, in the bond market, with bond yields dropping to a 3-year low. The RBI bought bonds worth 10,000 crore rupees between the 15th and 17th of January. This has boosted sentiment in the bond market. And here's another big story that's moving the forex markets worldwide. The US and Colombia have pulled back from the brink of a trade war. The Trump administration has put tariffs and sanctions on hold after the South American nation agreed to accept hundreds of deported immigrants from the US. Take a look.
The U.S. and Colombia pulled back from the brink of a trade war on Sunday. U.S. President Donald Trump had threatened tariffs and sanctions on Colombia for refusing to accept military flights carrying deportees as part of his sweeping immigration crackdown. But late on Sunday, the White House said Colombia had agreed to accept the migrants after all, and Washington would not impose those penalties.
El gobierno de Colombia.
Colombian Foreign Minister Luis Gilberto Murillo on Sunday said his country's government had, quote, gotten over its impasse with Washington. Earlier, Colombia's President Gustavo Petro had condemned the military deportation flights and said that he would never carry out a raid to return handcuffed Americans to the U.S. However, he also said that Colombia would welcome home deported migrants on civilian planes and offered his presidential plane to facilitate their, quote, dignified return. The Colombian statement did not specify whether the agreement it had struck with the U.S. included military flights, but it did not contradict the White House announcement. It added that Murillo and Colombia's ambassador to the United States will travel to Washington in coming days for follow-up meetings. The use of U.S. military aircraft to carry out deportation flights is unusual. Some of them carried out 2 flights to Guatemala on Friday, while Mexico also refused a request last week to let a U.S. military aircraft land with migrants. Trump has said he is thinking about imposing 25% duties on imports from Canada and Mexico on February 1st to force further action against illegal immigrants and fentanyl flowing into the U.S.
So the US and Colombia pull back from a tariff war. Indian Oil Corporation shares tumbled after a weak quarterly performance that largely missed estimates. Revenue was slightly above expectations, rising 11.5% sequentially. However, both profits and margins were far below estimates. LPG under recoveries for the quarter of 14,325 crore rupees further dented the company's profitability. So that's IOC for you. A fresh twist in the battle to control Religare Enterprises. US-based investor and entrepreneur Digvijay Gaikwad has sought permission from market regulator SEBI to make a counter-offer for Religare Enterprises. He revised his open offer and has bid for 55% stake in the company, but the Burman family believe Gaikwad's move to approach SEBI lacks substance. Vivek joins us now with more on this acquisition battle. Vivek.
Well, in a surprising and interesting twist in the Burman family versus the Religare board feud, there was a very important development that took place over the weekend. A US-based investor, Digvijay Gaikwad, approached SEBI to make an open offer for Religare Enterprises. In fact, he has written 2 letters to SEBI over the weekend. The first letter going ahead and offering to buy close to 26% stake, and then subsequently revising that particular open offer to buy up to 55% stake. Remember, the open offer price that he is offering to make is at 275 rupees a share, a premium to both the current market price as well as the Burman family's offer price of 235 rupees a share. However, there was an immediate response from the Burman family. They've claim that Gaikwad has not made any competing open offer. In fact, he's just requested SEBI's permission to make an open offer. Along with that, they also state that he's missed a 15-day deadline to make a competing offer after Burman's public statement. Along with that, they say that the request lacks substance with no source of funds or capacity to purchase shares. They also say that Religare is accused of recklessly disseminating the letter to mislead public shareholders. It is important to note that today is the day in which shareholders can go ahead and tender their shares as far as the Burman family's open offer is concerned. What is the way forward? Well, number one, what is SEBI's response to the open offer and whether they allow Gaikwad to go ahead with this particular open offer. Along with that, they also have to determine whether the offer was made on time. Also, remember, when you're talking about this particular open offer, it has to be made through a merchant banker. And also, there will be worries about what will be the FII ownership limit allowed as far as Religare Enterprises is concerned. In fact, we spoke to Gaikwad himself. Gaikwad said at this point of time, they find significant value as far as Religare is concerned, and they believe that their offer is a much better offer compared to what the Burman family is offering to Religare shareholders.
It's nothing out of blue. Any offer you give, it's always be out of blue, because I saw the value and I thought that it's a good value to go after. I did a very, very reasonable offer. Because in America, if you look at it in US, most of the offers are at the closing time stock, and then you get it about 17 to 20%, 15%. That's all I did. This is nothing extraordinary or no other event. I don't think so. Is this some kind of criteria that you have to own, otherwise you can't own? Don't you have always the first try, first attempt, first time? Maybe not India, but I have a lot of experience in America.
Well, that's Danny Gaikwad there on making that open offer for Religare. Lodha brothers Abhishek and Abhinandan are slugging it out in the Bombay High Court over the use of the Lodha brand name. Macrotech developers have sought a stay on the house of Abhinandan Lodha using the trademark. Meanwhile, Abhinandan Lodha maintains that his use of the brand name has not caused confusion in the market. Ashmit is standing by with more on the court's observations on the matter. Ashmit.
Well, it all boils down to a sparring session between the two brothers on who gets to use the Lodha brand name. What Macrotech Developers has done is that they filed a 5,000 crore rupee suit in the Bombay High Court where they're saying that only they are entitled to use the Lodha brand name, that any use of the Lodha brand name by Abhinandan Lodha is in fact illegal and unlawful. They go back, Macrotech Developers goes back to a settlement agreement that was reached between the two brothers. That Abhinandan Lodha shall not be using the Lodha trademark in any shape or form. Abhinandan Lodha on his part is saying that, look, I have been the one bailing them out of difficult situations. I've been giving them NOCs, bank guarantees. I've been inaugurating various functions of theirs, but now they're coming back to sue me. Abhinandan Lodha goes on to say that there is no confusion in the market. There's the Lodha brand name, and then there's the one which he's using, which is the house of Abhinandan Lodha. Having said that, the Bombay High Court is insisting that there is a need for perhaps a push at settlement and allowing the parties one more day's time to go back to the drawing board to figure out what they need, to figure out a way of settling this dispute. The Bombay High Court saying we're even open to the idea of having a CJI help mediate between the two parties. So an answer to that question expected tomorrow.
All right. Many thanks, Ashmit, for joining us. Abhishek Lodha has said that his brother Abhinandan Lodha cannot use the brand name as it belongs to Macrotech. Speaking to CNBC TV18, Abhishek Lodha said the use of the brand name by his brother has confused customers. Take a look.
But I can tell you in no unclear terms that the family agreement explicitly stated, and that time we were a private company. It was well before we became a listed company. It explicitly stated that all brand, IPR, trademark, copyrights of the group will exclusively and solely belong to Lodha developers or Macrotech as it is known now. And Abhinandan or any new business that he starts cannot use, and I emphasize these words, cannot use the same in any manner whatsoever.
The battle between the Lodha brothers. We'll take a break, but up next, India's Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri meets China's Foreign Minister Wang in Beijing. That and more when we return. India's Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri met with his Chinese counterpart, Foreign Minister Wang in Beijing. This is the second high-profile visit by an Indian official to China in a span of 6 weeks. Both nations are attempting to revive the bilateral relationship, which deteriorated in the aftermath of the Galwan Valley clash 5 years ago. Parikshit is standing by now with more details. Parikshit, what's the expectation? What is the hope that the MEA has with regards to this meeting?
Ever since Prime Minister Modi and President Xi Jinping reached a consensus at Kazan in Russia on the sidelines of the BRICS meeting, there have been efforts to reduce tensions at the border and also tensions in bilateral relations. Now, as a result of that, Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri has traveled to China for Foreign Secretary level talks. Now, in China, this is called Foreign Secretary Vice Ministerial talks. So, Vikram Misri met his counterpart Sun Weidong, who is the Foreign Secretary in China. He also met Foreign Minister Wang Yi, and he also met a senior member of the Chinese Communist Party, the international wing of the Chinese Communist Party. Now, Wang Yi communicated to the Indian side that both India and China must work for mutual benefit, must try and meet each other halfway, and not work towards increasing mutual suspicion and mutual depletion. The expectation from the Chinese side is to increase the economic engagement as much as possible, resume the issuance of travel visas for both tourists and businessmen, and also reduce the criminal action that we've seen against Chinese companies, also the action against betting apps which have been banned by the Indian government. On the Indian side, one of the immediate concerns is the building of a Chinese dam in the Tibetan plateau. Now, this concerns us because there is a worry that the flow of Brahmaputra into India would be impacted, renaming of places in Arunachal Pradesh and along the India-China border. Now, this seems to be a strategy by China to naturalize, normalize its disputed claims over these regions. So this is something that the Indian side is protesting over. And then having cross-border trade, opening up of the Kailash Mansarovar Yatra, these are some of the concerns on the Indian side. Let's see what kind of arrangement does India and China come up with in the days to come.
All right, Parikshit, many thanks for joining us. Now, thousands of displaced Palestinians have returned to northern Gaza after Israel and Hamas reached a deal to free 6 hostages. The displaced people returned home to their loved ones for the first time since the war began more than a year ago. The US and Lebanon have also announced the extension of the Israel-Hezbollah ceasefire deal till the 18th of February. This after the Israeli forces failed to withdraw from southern parts of the country and killed 22 people while they were returning home. Meanwhile, Palestinians have condemned US President Donald Trump's proposal to clean out Gaza. Trump has proposed to forcibly displace Palestinians to Egypt and Jordan. Well, with that, it is time for us to wrap up this edition of Business 360. The news will continue right here on CNBC TV18. Stay tuned. You're watching CNBC TV18. We're back in a moment with more.